Welcome YouTube to another D&D Fridays. It's y'all's truly, the Geek Life. Today we'll be taking another deep dive into another character, and today we'll be focusing in on a pretty, what I think is a pretty good tank build for anybody that might be looking for that sort of frontliner tank, protect their allies type of deal. Before we get into it, though, don't forget hit that subscribe button, that notification bell, and comment on down below on what you think of this build and maybe some things that you might do with it. But without further ado, let's get to it. So, of course, starting off on level 1, so with this whole tank build, the whole concept of it is to have somebody with a good good AC, good HP, and as well as some ways of really locking down the enemies so they can really so they can't get to any allies too easily. So for this, we're going to be going primarily Cleric, more specifically Forge Domain Cleric. So starting off with a level 1, I decided to go with a Mountain Dwarf as the race, specifically because it gives a +2, 2 floating +2s after you incorporate Tasha's. So I think we really need those 2 floating +2s. Which in this case I'm putting in Wisdom and Strength. Wisdom should be pretty obvious, as Wisdom is the casting stat for clerics. And the reasoning for Strength is not only do we need at least a minimum of 15 to wear full plate armor without any sort of hindrances, but also we'll be wielding a Warhammer. So that's really going, or later on, so that's going to really help our attack rolls. We don't really care too much about the damage rolls as much, but we want our attack rolls or to hit rolls as high as possible. So when picking up the Cleric on level 1, a few things, especially with the Dwarf, that really helps out is, so we have resistance and advantage against poison-based stuff, so that's going to help out our tanking abilities from being a Dwarf. And then from being a level 1 Forge Domain Cleric, we get a few things. So first off, we get proficiencies in heavy armor and a shield. So we're definitely going to pick up a shield and start wearing that. And we're going to wear chainmail, which is our start in heavy armor. So off gate we get 18 off of that. The reason why we have a 19 here is because Forge Domain Clerics get this ability on level 1 where they can pretty much touch any one weapon or armor, and as long as it's non-magical, then the weapon is treated as a +1 weapon and the armor is treated as a +1 armor. Now you can only have it active on one item at a time, so in this case we're treating our chainmail as pretty much splint mail. So that's 17 AC plus a shield, so we're starting off with 19, which is really, really good for level 1.
Yeah, that's a pretty powerful ability at level 1.
Yeah.
To be able to just upgrade that armor or weapon just by being a Forge Domain.
Yeah, and starting off, we're going to start off with the Warhammer. We're not really going to be using it just yet for the first couple of levels, mainly because we need a free hand to be able to do our spells, because we don't have Warcaster yet, but that's going to change eventually. So starting off, going from there, we're going to take a look at what things look like on level 3. So we don't get too many new abilities up until then, um, except for a couple of spells and the like. Um, so one thing that I will mention though is with the features and traits, we do get a couple of channel divinity stuff. So we could use our channel divinity to pop a use of that to gain a spell slot, as long as it's a certain level or lower. Or we can use our channel divinity to as artisan's blessings to create a couple of non-magical stuff that's worth 100 GP or less. So that situational, but that could come up depending on your campaign. The main thing that we're looking at though is when it comes to spells, the one spell that we really want to take a look at the moment is a second level spell called Spiritual Weapon. We definitely want to prepare that as soon as we can gain access to that so we can weaponize our bonus action just to help out with our damage input a little bit. But other than that, our AC is still looking pretty good. We have a pretty healthy HP pool at 24. It's nothing like a barbarian, but it's pretty serviceable. Um, how, how's everything looking in your from your
Well, this seems pretty straightforward. So far, nothing out of the ordinary. Pretty linear progression.
gigs? So so let's take a look at level 5 now. So we get a few things. So first off, we get an ASI from 4th level. This time we want to get a feat. Um, we want to get, where is it? The Warcaster feat. So this does a couple of things for us. First up, we can form the somatic components as if we have weapons and a shield in one or both hands. So that's going to allow us to really use our shield and our warhammer and still be able to cast spells, which we're looking at for later on in our build. But the other thing we're looking at is advantage on concentration saves. We're going to be concentrating a lot, so to help shore up that sort of concentration um, item, that's going to be really useful for us.
Warcaster is a really good feat just in general, anyway. But it's nice that it fits into this build pretty nicely just up front.
Yep. And then the second big thing that we do get is a third level spell slot or spells. And the big one that we're really going for is Spiritual Guardians. That's going to be our primary concentration spell. But basically what Spirit Guardians does is, let me bring it up on the screen. So pretty much centered on yourself, 15-foot radius. Pretty much everybody has to save or take 3d8 points of radiant damage or necrotic if you happen to be playing a evil character, but it's probably going to be radiant most times. So that's going to be good. A bit of chip damage each turn. That's going to be helpful. But the main reason why we're going with Spirit Guardians is that it halves the movement speed of anybody within it, any enemies within it. So that's going to be really, really useful. As basically all you have to do is just activate Spirit Guardians, get right next to somebody, and now they have 15 feet of movement or 20 or whatever is half of their movement speed. So it really makes enemies a lot harder or less of a chance to get to your allies. And then most times they're not unless they have a ridiculous movement speed. So that'll give you time to move back up on your turn and your allies to move back a bit to reposition in. So more or less you're kind of sort of not allowing people to get to your allies. So if anybody doesn't have ranged attacks, then they're only going to be pretty much on you,
Yeah.
which is what we're looking for.
Yep. Good battlefield control right there, right?
Yeah. So next up, now that we have a good chunk of what we're looking for, let's take a look at level 10. So one thing that we get is another ASI at 8th level. So one thing to really so look, again, stats I think are would be pretty good, but I think to help shore up this tankiness that we're really looking to get, we're going to pick up one more feat at this level. And this is the primary reason, or one of the primary reasons for picking up Warcaster, is so we can actually use a Warhammer. And then, so what we're picking up is the Sentinel feat.
Hmm.
So whenever anybody leaves your threatening area, even if they take the disengage action, you can make an opportunity attack, and if you hit them, their speed becomes 0. So if this happens to go off, now they're pretty much stuck right next to you within your Spirit Guardians, taking more chip damage, and you have a good AC, so it's going to be difficult for them to hit you for any time soon. So I think this really helps to keep folks off of other teammates, especially when considering that if you're running a campaign that's going strictly rules as written, if somebody has a ranged attack, they're still going to have disadvantage, even if you're right next to them. So that's going to be really helpful.
Definitely, Sentinel's a great feat to pick up. It's just it's so useful in so many scenarios, and it's very inconspicuous as a feat, but it's great.
Yep, exactly. And the other, I think, big thing that we get on 6th level from being a Forge Domain Cleric is Solo the Forge. So first off, you gain resistance to fire damage, which is one of the most common damage types within D&D, so that's always helpful. And as long as you're wearing heavy armor, you gain a +1 to AC, which is amazing. So right now you're looking at a 20 AC with non-magical chainmail.
It's really nice.
But by now, you probably have access to full plate. So let's just take a look at what full plate will actually give to us instead of chainmail. So just keep in mind whenever you're for the first level effect, you actually need to override the armor a little bit, just to add in a little bit of extra AC to it from there. So so right now we're looking at a 22 armor class, and that's not accounting for any other magic or anything of that nature. So 18 from full plate, +2 from shield, +1 from first level ability, +1 from 6th level ability.
22 is a hefty armor class at 10th level.
Yep. So it's going to be really tough for folks to really get to us or actually damage us in a meaningful way. So that's what we're pretty much looking at this current time frame.
Yeah, this is definitely a tank build.
So let's take a look at 15th level and see what type of goodies we're looking at now. So we do get one more ability score improvement at 12th level. So what we're going to do here is finally take a stat boost. We're going to do a +1 to strength and a +1 to wisdom. So what that's going to do is that's going to even out our strength and wisdom to 18s. So that'll give us a +4 or +9 to hit with our Warhammer, and a +4 to our wisdom modifier, which really helps out our our spell save DC, which at this current time is going to be a 17, which isn't too bad.
Not bad at all, actually.
Yep. And we're looking at resistance to poison and fire from our features and stuff like that. 108 HP, which is decent. So overall, we're looking pretty good for what we're trying to do.
Yeah, this so far this has been a very straightforward build. Take the feats and the armor that allows you just to keep adding to that AC. Very, very linear build here.
Yep. So let's take a look at what this build looks like once we actually get to 20th level. So we do get 2 more ASIs, one at 16th level, one at 19th level. So we have a couple of options that we can look at now. I think a few options that could be really good depending on what we're trying to do. So I would say that at this point in time, I would say to max out wisdom would be pretty good. Get it up to 20. So that does a couple of things. So that'll maximize our spell save DC, which at this point will be 19, which is what it should be, barring any magic items or the like. Also, what it does is any healing spells that we might do, things of that nature, that's going to key off of our wisdom modifier. So now we're going to have a +5 to all of that stuff. So we're going to be maximizing our healing static modifier with that, which is probably going to be good for any tanky build. You want to keep yourself healthy, and we'll be able to hit as often as we want with spiritual weapon. Now with our last ASI, we do have a couple of things that we could do. One good option is we could pick up the Resilient Constitution feat. That would cheer up our concentration saves. So I think that would be a good option. We could maximize our strength to make sure that our Sentinel opportunity attacks go off as much as possible. We could take the tough feat for a whole boatload more HP. But I think probably what I would probably do is pick up a feat, and the feat that I personally would want to do is the alert feat. Not being surprised is good, but the reason why I'm thinking about taking the reason why I'm taking the alert feat is for the +5 bonus to initiative. So just taking a look at what we have, we really only have a 10 dexterity. So again, that +5 to initiative is going to be super helpful. So now we have a +5 to initiative instead of 0. So that'll help us to go earlier than some creatures. The reason why that's super important is the more creatures we go in front of, then the more creatures that we can put ourselves between our allies and them, so we can better fulfill that tank role.
Fair point. Fair point. I think I probably would have gone with the tough feat and added a boatload of HP and emphasized being able to take more hits. Right. So to your point, right, it's do I put myself out in front faster, or do I absorb more hit points? It's definitely, there's no right or wrong answer here, because you're still playing that role of the tank, which is the whole point of this character.
Yeah, I agree. I think could be wrong. There could be something else that's really good, but I think that either the tough feat or the alert feat are probably the 2 best options, depending on what type of path you're trying to go towards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because do you want that +5 to initiative, or do you want an extra 40 points of HP?
40 points of HP is kind of nice, but so is initiative. So I think it really depends on how you would want to play this character.
Yep.
Both are great choices at the end of the day.
And the one other thing that is going to be really good that you get from being Forge Domain Cleric is on is once you get to 17th level, you get the Saint of Forge and Fire. So first off, you gain immunity to fire damage, which is immunity to anything is good, but immunity to one of the most common damage types is super helpful. So now going up to against like an ancient red dragon, you're gonna be laughing at its dragon's breath, taking nothing. And then as long as you're wearing heavy armor, you gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage from non-magical attacks. That's a little bit more situational in my mind, only because at this point in time, what things doesn't have magical attacks short of if the GM throws mob stuff at you.
Right. Yeah.
So it's still useful. I'm not gonna not take it, but just to keep just to keep that in perspective, that would be a whole lot more useful at level 5 than level 20.
Yeah. This sort of suffers from the late game D&D syndrome here with these higher level abilities, right? It's half good, not great, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's one of those things like you said, immunity to fire damage is amazing.
It's awesome.
Resistance to non-magical bludgeon, piercing, slashing, okay,
Yep.
fine.
Yep.
So all in all, so when it comes to spells, just to run down a little bit of the spells. So we're going to be looking at 5 cantrips that we can have, 25 spells that we can prepare. So just going off of some sort of, I guess, advice is, so for cantrips, guidance is always a good cantrip. Probably would pick that up. Um, Another good, so before you get into the level spells, I would probably recommend that Spirit Guardian Spiritual Weapon is probably going to be your go-to combo most of the time. But there are a few other good spells that I would recommend picking up. Aid is a good spell to have. It's second level spell. If you cast it at second level, up to pretty much up to 3 creatures have their current and maximum HP increased by 5 for 8 hours, and for each spell slot above that you upcast it, those creatures gain an extra 5 HP to their current and max HP. So especially if you happen to go the route of the alert feat, this could potentially be that extra tough feat that you can get for that adventuring day, or even if you went to the tough feat path, this could add on a bunch of extra survivability on you.
Sure.
So
Absolutely.
I would definitely recommend picking up Aid. That would be pretty good. And it's kind of a pseudo mass heal as well. So that would be pretty good. I would probably recommend picking up Lesser Restoration. That might be good in case like if you happen to be like blinded or something like that. That could be situationally pretty good.
Nice to have in your back pocket just in case.
Yes, I definitely agree. Um, I would probably say, of course, have some sort of um, revival stuff. So Revivify is probably one of the better revive spells. 1 action casting time, cheapest component cost. So just in case you have folks, your teammates going down, that might be pretty good to have. If you want, Death Ward could be potentially situationally useful. If you know you're coming across something that might have like a power word kill or something like that, you can always put that on yourself to increase your tankiness.
Yeah, I kind of like Death Ward in this case, and applying it to yourself. Give yourself that extra round of ability, right? To extra, not really extra round, but that the extra you can take at least one more swing, right? Depending on when you go down. So I think that that works really well into this type of, into the tank idea.
Yep, kind of agree. And then I think greater restoration would be good in those clutch moments that you happen to get. Um, like maybe your HP maximum was reduced by some way, or like maybe somebody was starting to petrify you or something like that. So that could be pretty good in this sort of build. Um, I would say having like mass cure wounds would be good to have a mass healing to help um, recover some of your HP in battle. That's non concentration.
Yep.
Um, I would say heal would probably be good as well. It gives yourself extra 70 points of HP, which could really help you out in terms of allow you to take 2, 3, 4 more hits
Yep.
or what have you. I would also recommend Heroes Feast. It probably isn't something that I would always prepare, but it's something to consider because one of the good things is pretty much everybody that partakes into it is now immune to being frightened, which is going to be detrimental. You gain your HP maximum increases by 2d10, so that could be also pretty good as well. And so I think Hero's Feast is a good spell to really keep in mind, depending on the adventuring day.
Agreed.
Uh, and I would say that after that, the other spell I'll probably recommend is for your ninth level spell, pick up Mass Heal. This Mass Heal is a very good healing spell. You basically have a pool of 700 HP that you can divide it up among any number of people within 60 feet of yourself. And it also cures any diseases and any sort of blind or deafened effect.
Yeah, that is a massive, massive spell right there. Great, great capstone spell at ninth level.
Yep. So right now we're looking at just 143 HP, assuming that you don't go with the tough feat, and assuming that you don't cast aid on yourself. But I'll probably assume that you would want to cast aid on yourself for to add in 5 plus HP to your maximum HP to tank more. We're looking at a 22 AC, and that's not accounting for any sort of magic, or if you happen to get like a plus X shield or like a minimum of a +2 armor. When it comes to the armor, though, what I would recommend is you usually want to keep a non-magical armor so you can retain that +1 from your first level ability. Now, where now the time that I think you would want to take that off of your armor is if you happen to find like a +2, +3 armor, or an armor that really give you some really good benefit, like maybe a adamantine armor in case your GM's dice are always hot with natural 20s or something like that. But you definitely want to weigh what that armor can really do, and is it worth that +1 investment? Um, like for instance, if you happen to get a +1 armor, you can always switch that to your Warhammer to make it a +1 Warhammer or something like that. So definitely keep that in mind when you're looking for your armor.
It's a good point.
Yep. Then you're going to be immune to fire, which is good, resistant to poison, and a couple other things. Um, the one thing that's probably that you'll definitely have to watch out for is you can be a little bit weak against some saving throws. So you're going to be good with your wisdom saving throw, which is probably one of the nastiest saves to go against. So you don't have to worry about dominate person and whatnot as often. But you're going to have to worry about like mind flares and stuff a bit because you don't have great intelligence. And you're going to have to worry about your con save and throw against petrification and the like because you don't have that high of a constitution. So definitely keep those things in mind. However, if your party happens to have a paladin, then that's great because the paladin's going to be right up there next to you. So you're going to get that plus X from their charisma.
You'll get
But
that aura.
yeah, so that's just something to keep in mind of. And the other thing that to keep in mind of is just your initiative. You may or may not have a great initiative, depending on if you pick up the alert feed. So keep that in mind. And the other thing is, you're going to have a 25-foot walking speed instead of the usual 30 feet. So sometimes you might be 5 feet short of actually where you want to be. So that's definitely something to keep in mind with
Yeah.
when looking at some of this stuff.
Yeah, good points to keep in mind and things to remember as you're trying to uh, prepare and plan how you're gonna want to utilize this character in the different encounters.
Yeah. And when it comes to your stats and skills and stuff like that, you're going to be really good at the wisdom based stuff. Especially your perception. So plus 11 to that with 21 passive perception. So you're really going to be the one that the group turns to when the group's really trying to look at something or find something or the like. But at the same time, you don't have that great of a intelligence score, so don't expect to be the one to really try to figure out something magical via arcana or history or something like that. And you don't have a great stealth, so you're not going to be sneaking, and you're going to probably be the worst one to sneak because not only do you have a zero modifier to dex, but since you're wearing plate armor, you're going to have disadvantage to those stealth checks.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to keep in mind when it comes to that. So those are going to be some of your weaknesses that you have to keep in mind when it comes to stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. This seems I guess like as I mentioned a couple times before, very linear build, very straightforward. Has very easy progressions. It comes counterbalanced with some weaknesses in here, but if you're really going for that tank build, this definitely leans heavily into that and gives you the AC to be able to hang in there and take those hits.
Yeah. And then I'll probably say one other possibility that you could do if you want to take this tank build slightly more is instead of going a full 20 levels in Cleric, if you really wanted to, you could take 19 levels of Cleric and a 1 level dip in Fighter. If you go that route, what that would do is it would give you a fighting style, which you would probably want to pick up the defensive fighting style for that +1 to AC, which would make it 23 in this case. So if you really want that extra +1 to AC, then that could be something that you want to take a look at.
Another option on the table for sure.
Yep, exactly. And it also gives you second wind, which is going to be a super minor heal, which at this level isn't going to be too relevant, but it's something. Other than that, that's pretty much the build. I You never know what type of magic items you'll get in terms of your campaign, but if you do happen to come across like an amulet of health, then that might be good for you. So you'll have a +4 con mod instead of a +2. Um, the ring and cloak of protections are always good. If you find like a magical warhammer, that might be good. But or if you happen to find like a necklace of prayer beads, that could be good as well. But there's options depending on what's going on.
Yep.
But all in all, with this sort of build, You should be pretty tough to take down as long as the GM isn't always targeting your intelligence saving throw.
Yep.
But if they're consistently targeting your intelligence saving throw in terms of like every other save you make is intelligence, then you might want to have a talk with your GM about that, because that seems a bit seems like they're trying to snipe you out. But other than that, it's pretty tanky. You should be lasting quite a bit in battle.
Yeah. Yep. Seems like a good build.
Mhm. So with that, thanks for the another deep dive into a cleric tank build. And until next time, you two, keep y'all's lives geeky.
Bye, everybody.